So the chair for APS HRMNet and the leadership, the previous guest speakers who I know are still present, are part of that, and the HR community in Africa. Good afternoon. Or is it evening? Good afternoon. Just wave up to me, just to make sure at least you're not asleep as I engage in this conversation. So thank you so much, Anastasia, for the introduction. I would like us to be authentic. Sometimes when you hear a very long introduction, there is a Bible verse you want to remember that says, in the multitude of many words, sin never lack. And I'm here to talk about performance management. And one of the things that I am an advocate for is that you should have a one-page scorecard. So if you can't compress the meaning, the accountability in one page, then you're in the multitude of many words. And in that, sin may not lack. I don't know whether I'm addressing to someone. So my name is Gabriel Nyamu. Again, I won't really reintroduce myself. First is to appreciate the HR network for organizing such a wonderful team, to be able to co-create, to exchange thoughts, ideas, perspectives, and more so I also relate with the theme for the year, being able to position HR as a state craft. And I'll be engaging your mind because it's an afternoon, so I'd like us to have more co-creating environment than just a speech or just a presentation. So kindly, let's co-create this. How many have been following the African Moving Forward, the Africa Forward Summit that was happening in Nairobi? Anyone? Just one? Any other person? No one else? How do we expect to support such kind of a global coalition and partnership as HR? Because there's something for you. Let me ask another question, and I'll ask so many questions so that I keep you engaged. How many here are in business? How many are in business? 1, 2. How many are in business? Only 2 people are in business. Then what are the others doing? What are the others doing? You're doing what? Providing service. I love mindset transformation coaching. Now, why I will ask that question is, if you're not in business, I don't know what you're doing as a HR. And what is business? Business is nothing to do with the profit and starting a kiosk and having a border farm and selling merchandise. No. Any meaningful engagement through which value and impact is generated, you're a business person. Notice I've not mentioned money. Any meaningful engagement through which value is created or impact made, you are in business. So how many are in business? I've converted now addition like 10%. So there are still some that are still not in business. And I think our lovers, maybe by the time we finish this session, I'll have to recruit most of you to be business people and to think value, to think impact. Because if you're not generating impact, then definitely whatever we do may lack meaning. I'm supposed to give a talk around managing performance and change in digitally transforming institutions. And I don't know whether we probably have an idea of what is happening globally currently, the current reality of the 21st century. We definitely have gone through various industrial revolutions. I think we are more aware of that. From the time we had the first industrial revolution, the second one, we went into the third one, which we call the information age. Now we've gone to the intelligence age, and we are almost ushering a new age. We are calling it the age of consciousness. Now, apparently, in the previous age of intelligence, we are able to almost mimic human behavior and their engagement and replace them with a robot. I participated in a forum where a professor from one of the leading universities told us, and it was a joke, and he was saying that the next generation or the next future that we are envisioning will only have 3 characters. And I may use some words that may not be very nice, but we were saying we'll have probably only 3 characters. And those 3 characters, number 1, that there will be a human being, yes. Number 2, there will be a robot. And number 3 is that there will be, guess what will be there? A dog. I will repeat. There will be a human being, and there will be a robot, and there will be what? A dog. And I'm using that as an imagery. Follow me. But then he went ahead and told us, let's give the JD, job descriptions for these 3. And he said, the work of the robot, it's obvious. What will the robot do? To do all the work. Isn't it? To do all the? It's a robot. So what will be the work of the man or the human? Assume the robot does all the work. And I'm going to get to that conversation along. What will be the work of the human if the robot does all the work? Huh? What will be the work of the human? To do instructions. You instruct a robot. In the generative AI, and I'll speak as a data scientist also there, because I'm in that AI space also, I think that can already be, that's already gone. We can augment the human intelligence. So why do you need instructions? It can be self-autonomous. Humanize the AI. You think so? So that which will humanize can already be also algorithmically programmed. Now we are trying to program consciousness. I know it's very hard because that's a whole different dimension. Now, I'll go to my joke. Let me not drop the joke. The joke was that the human will be feeding the dog, and the dog will prevent man from interfering with the robot. As I said, it's a joke, okay? So the robot will do all the work, the human will feed the dog, and then the dog will prevent the man from interfering with the robot so the robot become autonomous. This is a professor actually from MIT, and I remember it was just a way of provoking a conversation. However, we all know very well that what makes us human? What is make us human? You know, I want you to talk to your neighbor briefly. This is a question I always begin with, which is very critical because I cannot ignore the issue of purpose in this conversation. I'm sure most of the speakers that have already talked about this. You remove your title, remove your JD, remove your qualification, remove your ethnic tribe, remove your marital status, or whether you're a father or a mother, okay? What exactly, who are you? Who are you? And how unique are you? So remove all of them. Who are you? So forget about the title. Don't tell you are a director or a project manager or a HR manager. Don't tell me what you have studied. That is what you studied. That's not you. Who are you? Who are you? An emotional being. Who are you? You know, I was speaking to a forum, and I'll give few stories, but not so much to divert. I don't want to diverge from my topic. And there's this one of these leading NGOs, and we know what happened when Donald Trump took over the power, and many of the big fundings were frozen from USAID. So I happened to speak to one of these, Tier 1 NGOs that was heavily funded from that regime within Africa, and I had all these African directors, all the country directors for that NGO. They were in a retreat, so I was speaking in that retreat. And I posed that question. And I remember that room turning out to be like a therapy room. Because for the first time, the reality was shaken that you're not what you do, that you're not the title that you stand in, including the social class and the social status of being married and single. That's not who you are. And there's a reason why you are called human being, not human doing. What is a being? And we are people who are managing other people here. So I'm speaking to people who should actually be knowing this better than me. And I remember, having conversations with them and trying to, provoke the conversation about purpose, because I believe that the aspect of purpose can never be replaced by anything, including the AI itself. Because there's a dispensation that we operate as human beings that AI can never replace. And the thought experiments I'll give you here is, if you're going through grief or a very difficult situation, and I said you 9 human beings, half of them are your relatives, half of them are strangers. And then the 10th element or the 10th agent will be a robot. And I will train all of them with a script, standard script. They will recite the same thing. Let's say you're going through grief. They will recite exactly the same words. And they are going even to mimic emotion. So if there's to hug you, they will hug you the same way. All of them. 9 human beings, mix of your relatives and strangers, and the 10th one is a robot. Do you think you're going to receive the same level of empathy from the 10 agents? Let me call them agents. Will you receive the same level of empathy? In fact, when I meet you, you'll tell me, oh, this 7th guy, that 7th person, could be Anastasia. That 7th person was such a, and they will use a word which is mostly a noun. It was such an encouragement to me. There was such a pillar. We call that essence. They will not talk about they encouraged me. They will say he was such a pillar, such an encouragement. Encouragement is noun. It's different from you encouraged me. But apparently because of survival, we've not necessarily been oriented into that space of thinking on what is unique really around us. When you discover that, you discover nobody can fire you from your life purpose. And why am I bringing this? Because you're talking about performance. I'll be a bit more controversial because this conversation of purpose also, in another context, we are running away from it. And I've already seen some of the very progressive organizations actually dropping what you call KPIs. And I'm a strategy consultant, so these are space we operate in performance management, in balance scorecard and all that. And now we are moving towards what you call key faithfulness indicators, KFY, instead of KPIs. And I've worked with organizations, global, who actually now moving and discovered this performance paralysis is making people just become transactional. And they can fake anything to appear like they are performing. That's unfortunate reality. But now we've discovered, I think we need to be more human-centered. And what a human we need from a human being is their faithfulness. So if you have potential within you, can you say you have been faithful on what you delivered? How many have been faithful with our life this far? And by that I mean you have convictions, which is truth you know, and you can say, I have stood this truth to date. How many have been faithful to their life? You may see where we have a problem in the world. Then you expect people who are unfaithful to perform. I hope I'm heading somewhere. You're talking about performance, but I will be a bit controversial a little bit there. How will I be a performer if I am unfaithful, even with my own convictions, even the value systems that I have? I'm not being faithful. How will I sustain performance? It will not happen. And my essence for today was to elevate our consciousness. I'm happy that we have this digitization. We're going to talk about it. I'm happy we have AI and robots and all that can do even better than human being. Why? It's because a human being now will be left to do that which AI will never do. And that is to be human. That's the essence. So we have to be human-centered HR practitioners and HR readers. So what do you think is happening in this? Whatever is on the screen. What is happening there? What exactly is happening there? These guys were told to build 100 miles railway. Maybe start gauge railway. 100 miles. Is it achieved? Yes. Can we pay the contractor immediately? Yes. KPI was what? Miles. Construct 10,000 miles. Done. This is done. Miles done. Why should we not pay the contractor? But what is happening here? If I had time, I engage this, especially within our leadership summit, just to discuss all the characters. There are the 6 of them. Okay? What is happening in their mind? What are they arguing? And all that. Who among the characters there do you think probably, if you count them from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, who do you think is looking like performance focused? Number two, the guy who is just like this. Number two. Number one, this guy is at 5 p.m. He's going home. Time, clock in, clock out. Number? Ashamaliza kazi, yes. So, who appear like he has achieved, I have done my QA test. If it's a quality assurance, we are done. Go home. I don't know what number 4 is doing. I'm not so sure. What is it? He's pointing the mistakes. Oh, he's an analyst. So he's trying to pick where gaps were. And I told you, there are those guys who shine later when something's so wrong and they say, I had already seen this thing will not work. Maybe. Yes. Oh, one way of what is in between your ears? Yeah? And apparently these are the things that happen in a typical corporate space when we are reviewing where we are and where we had said we'll be. And you call it performance management. But it's always chaos like this. There is no order. But you know what happens here? We are now currently rewriting the story. After doing all those key performance indicators, OKRs, almost management by objectives, and all those bar and scorecard, we've discovered the greatest tragedy in humanity today is actually not even performance. It's not even lack of empowerment. I know we do empowerment programs. It's one very simple thing. Misalignment. Misalignment. If you are misaligned, it doesn't matter the amount of empowerment we overlay. It doesn't matter what kind of exposure we give you and send you to Harvard and send you to that best certification. It doesn't matter. And sometimes you find even our key performance indicators is actually automatically misaligned even to where the organization is heading to. Because the organizations have a purpose, have a mission, you have your strategy, your values and your culture definitions. But there will be any sense of misalignment within the organization. It doesn't matter how smart your KPIs look like. You will not get the ultimate results. Because the tragedy we have, the human drift we have currently, is actually a misalignment issue. That's why my mantra is always to allow people to live what you call fit life, fulfilling, impactful, and transcending. That means you are aligned. And even as HR, you make sure you align your own employees. And we'll talk about that alignment later. What do you mean by alignment? Okay. I think I've given this story and I'll always keep repeating it in every time I have an engagement to talk as part of my foundation still. When I worked in the banking sector and in 2008 we did retrenchment when we were listing in the stock exchange. So when we laid off around 100 plus employees and I think I may have repeated this, and there are these teams that were being laid off to go home. And some people who had served for 20, 30 years were going home. And I remember one lady, actually, she was from Coast, senior in the bank. And when, she was successful. She was, top of the world in terms of everything may think humanly you need to achieve. Living in the top estate, I have investments, he's a landlord, I have lunches, can do large-scale farming. The family well up, the children are all abroad, working abroad. That means even the children can take care of her. But I remember sitting on my desk, and I was very young, 2008, in charge of benefits, and, she cried. And she was telling me, I have brought all my children. They are all working abroad. Nobody, she's not buying diapers. We call them empty nests, okay? Empty nest. And then she looked at me and told me, I still feel I'm going home empty. And this is the emptiness that employees, that we are managing every day, they feel. Because they barely don't find what you call meaningful work on what they do every day. But they have to wake up and show up. Why? They have to survive. But were we meant for survival, honestly speaking? That's a problem. Now, if somebody is on survival mode, how do you expect them to give you performance management? The performance? How? If somebody on survival mode, they will look for every opportunity to survive. That's the thing. Including surviving a PIP. Okay? Performance improvement. They will just operate on the minimal threshold, just enough to stay afloat. So we need to rethink on how even we engage people differently from what we've done before. I think I asked this question, I won't repeat. Now, I have HR team here. Can I give you an assignment, and probably don't quote me when you go back? Stop sharing your monthly reports for 3 months. But don't quote that I incited you. Don't give your boss your report for the next 3 months. Question is, what will go wrong? And who will even notice and why? It's when you discover we've been so routined and patterned in the transactional way of work, we are not a pilot. And sometimes we do things to tick a box, a checklist. So if us, we can't be at that position, what will happen to the people that you overseen? They'll also do the same. I mostly ask executives and ask them, you did a monthly report in the month of February. We are in May. How is it useful to you right now? And you find there's nothing. But because it's a requirement by a stakeholder to release that report, you do it mechanically. And that becomes the habitual work. The thing is, we have to shift gears. First is to become purpose-led leaders and strategically aligned, and I think we're going to touch about that briefly. We have to be human-centered because the best way we can do is just to be human. Question will be, how are you human? And how do we make the people that we are managing every day to be more human? By using human-centered approaches. And then finally, of course, we cannot ignore the issue of data and AI. But not seeing it as a threat, because you're talking about digitization and how do we steward. One of the things I'm very excited is that even at the boardroom and also at the executive level, I have already seen some shift where HR have started driving digital transformation. And I'm so excited because I have use case. They may not necessarily be in the government per se, but I have use case of some leading organizations where HR actually, the chief HR officer, is driving digital transformation. Because performance, impact that you're making is as good as the way we steward the human potential. So who should be the best person to even succeed the CEO? Is who? You believe it? It's a HR? A question for you. How many have applied for a CEO position in the last 2 years? CEO position for the last 2 years? Oh, thank you, my sister. Fantastic. This is great. So we are saying we believe that the next person who should succeed as CEO is HR. But for the last 2 years, none, only one person have ever dared even to apply for that role. What are we waiting for? And what do we need? That the conversion we need to have such forums. Because if indeed you can drive performance on an organization, then who are you? You are the CEO. Because performance has to be linked to people. It is not the robots and the machines that we deploy. No, it's still people. So the best praised people and leaders actually to drive even this digital transformation issue, you don't have to be technical. You don't have to have the technical know-how. No. It's just a way of co-creating the change and the transformation that you envision to see. And I'll give you one typical case. I won't mention the name, but it's a listed company in Kenya. So we went in Naivasha for a strategy retreat. They had just deployed state-of-the-art Oracle BI platform. BI means business intelligence. This is where you have dashboards on your mobile phone, meaning you're able to track everything that is happening, a risk flag on your phone, real time. And we went for a retreat. These guys had spent almost 2-point-something billion to deploy that BI architecture, which is a big technology, superior technology platform. So in Naivasha, these almost 100 plus managers, and I posed a question to them. And I asked them, okay, yeah, we've spent all these money to deploy what? Business intelligence. It's part of the digital transformation, especially when you want to pivot into data-driven decision making. Then I asked them, how many amongst us of you HODs, senior executive, can be able to narrate for us a typical use case of a situation where you have seen an insight from the data, from that dashboard, and that insight has been implemented and has proven impact, and everybody looked down. You know what was going through my mind? 2+ billion imekunywa maji. Why? Is because we think technology work. No, it is people. So we rush to digitize, whereas the capacity, the culture, even the thinking, the frame of the thinking is actually not able to cope with the capacity of the technology we're implementing. I can't bring technology there. I'll bring the people. And I said, why did you have to spend all this money, yet there is no use case, a proven case, where somebody have gotten data-driven insight from the dashboard, has taken it all the way to implementation, and there is tangible impact and ROI, nothing. Why must we have to do that? And I remember saying, what you have in front of you is just an automated album. You know what is an album? For Generation X, my colleagues used to have a physical album. Nowadays you have digital albums where you flip your photos. So people have digital architecture, dashboards, and they are flipping those dashboards one at a time. Wow, these are nice charts, nice vortex charts, nice waterfall charts and all that. They are flipping it, okay? That's an album. No ability to translate data-driven insights into impact. But the technology is able to provide for you real-time dashboards. What is failing there? The company had invested 2+ billion, but return on investment in terms of impact-led, or what you call insights funnel from data-driven, intelligence, 0. But you'll say you are digitized. So I can't bring technology. It will go back to who? Human being. We have already seen even the AI space. People are using AI just as a Google search. What is the issue? The AI is super. It can augment efficiency. But if you don't build even the digital behavior, the digital capability, the competencies, and we have to read from the front as HR, those technologies will not give you any return on investments at the end of the day. It will not. And hiring extra headcount will not solve the issue. The call for me here is we have to change and recordation and repivot the way we operate as HR leaders. And we see ourselves as organizational leaders. If there was one thing I'm always critical about, is this thing we created called departments. I think the greatest failure sometimes we have in our corporate world today is departments. Because it just makes people be silo. Collaboration is almost zero. So me, I'm a finance. Me, I'm a risk. Me, I'm whatever. I think those things, those are boxes that actually are sabotaging even organizational performance. Because everybody is seeing things from their own lens, but not from an enterprise lens. So as a HR, we have to see things not just within the confines of how we attract employees, we develop them, we build leadership bench and the talent pipeline. No, it has to go beyond that. We have to follow it up the way up to the end in terms of the value and the impact that the organization is making. In fact, I would love where, if you're a HR director or a chief HR officer, your scorecard actually should be exactly like the one for CEO. Kindly, go and tell your CEO, nataka scorecard yako. Exactly. Whichever KPI is there, whether it shows your impact for public service, the impact on customers, the public trust, if you're in the for-profit, of course, if you're making money, that profit, that bottom line, take it. Because if you can't contribute to it, how relevant are you? There's a problem. So we always begin with defining, and when you're building performance, we have to make sure we are clear with the purpose of organization. Many employees don't even understand why the organization exists. If you ask them, they don't know. Now, if you don't know why that organization exists, how do you contribute and become a co-creator of impact within that organization? They will only just form or perform within their JD. Just the contractual obligations. I know government is making an effort to do performance contracting. I think there are a few stories. I know like KRI have been doing that for some time. And they were able to pay bonus. I think we went to benchmark there in 2021, I remember. I was doing for another entity, and I thought they were paying bonus. I don't know how many others are paying bonus, performance-linked bonus, as organizations. Any performance-based incentives, doesn't have to be bonus, can also be any other incentive. Yes? Yes. Which organization is that? Oh, corporate investment. Awesome, that's great. I was happy to see, government paying bonus. Meaning they are saying we don't have to increase your pay just because of how many years you have served. You can serve 10 years, but can be 1 year repeated 10 times. You know that? That's why nowadays when you say I have 20 years experience, be careful whether it was not 1 year repeated 20 times. So we make sure that our employees understand the purpose, the mission, and the vision of the organization. Of course, you have the strategy. Research keeps telling us, more than 85% of the typical workforce do not understand their strategy. Yet you expect them to contribute to the strategy execution. And it's because most of the strategic plans and the translation documents from it are always a purview of the executive. If a typical employee cannot connect with the strategy, there is no way then they can feel obligated or accountable to its fulfillment. But I want to talk about the 3 things which will be critical in then building what you call alignment. Number 1 is work. Now, would you consider the work your people do as meaningful? It's a question for us. And maybe so that we keep awake, could you ask your next neighbor there, is the work that your employees do you find any place where maybe this meaningless work that is not meaningful? Just talk to each other, just for some few seconds. Could there be work within your organization that you consider not meaningful? But there are people doing it. There's a head count attached to it. Before I give an example. Because you cannot say we are aligning people if we don't create meaningful work. If we don't evolve the things that people do to be meaningful. With all due respect, let me give you an example. One, meaningful work, I will give it a definition. There are several characteristics. Number 1 is work that, of course, that somebody is able to attach a sense of impact and contribution to it at the end. So you have a net-to-head visibility that what I'm doing contribute to a positive impact at the end. Number 2, there is opportunity for transferability of the skill. Keyword, transferability of the skill. Number 3, there is a sense of alignment between you and the work itself. Meaning there is a flow of grace and potential within you naturally, even if you never went to school. There are some cases where you find there's just a natural you flowing. So you can feel a rhythm of you into the job itself. So you don't force yourself. Now, if you go to some departments, you'll find people doing something, for example, called reconciliation. Let's talk about that reconciliation. How do we get reconciliation? Is where entries were not made correctly in the beginning. Whatever entry, whether it's expenditure, you are reconciling your impressed account or payments for those who are in organizations that receive money. So you're reconciling maybe the receipts and the general ledger as an example. But because you didn't have proper chart of accounts, what do? Maybe there are some entries that get all over into the suspense. So somebody has to sit down there, uplift those elements, and place them in the general ledger so that they prepare the accounting statement. That's an example. Or somebody has to go to the HRIS system and to try to reconcile your leave balances manually, your payments, maybe something was the wrong grade and all that. You're just doing a rework there. So let's use the case of the reconciliation. So somebody is a master's graduate, MBA, CFA, or ACCA, CPAK, with a master's or an MBA, then that person is doing what? Reconciliation. I want you to ask you a question. Where in campus did they study a unit called reconciliation? You tell me where. And which certification, even professionally, is there called reconciliation? And I say with all due respect because I know some people could be doing this. But I want you to see how we have actually created some meaningless work. Then we expect those people to be happy, fulfilled, and have impact. It will not happen. Would you grow and give me the career path for that role? Would you have chief reconciliation officer? You know, when I go to organizations, because we do transformation and strategy, there are some departments you go and see a whole department with 20, 30 people, reconciliation officers. And I ask them, guys, which is the career path for these guys? Show me. None. You can't become chief reconciliation officer. You never studied anything in campus called reconciliation standards. Nowhere. There's no certification called reconciliation something certificate. But who have created that? It's us. And we issue that JD confidently. So you are co-creators of that. Need that be? There's something I wrote one time back. The grave scenes in the corporate world. You need that be moja in the corporate world. You've created even work that is not meaningful. Then you're expecting somebody seated in that work, that JD, that they'll give you their best? Never. They'll give you bare minimum to survive a PIP. And they will be finding opportunities elsewhere to thrive. We need to ask ourselves, is the work our people do every day, is it meaningful? Do they find a sense of meaning in what they do? Because if tomorrow you retire, what shall you be reconciling in the village? Look at the transferability of the skill. How do you... If you're in the bank, I worked in the bank, so you have these guys in the back office who stamp checks, and they receive like thousands of checks every day, and you stamp them. I retire tomorrow. Which check shall you be stamping in the village? What is the transferability of that skill? You tell me. So you see, when we talk about even mental health, and we have all these issues, it's a misalignment issue. People are not aligned to something meaningful. So the first line of alignment before rushing to the KPIs is to even check the quality of work people are doing in those JDs. And where digitization can happen, where AI can do better, kindly give the AI to do. There will still be work for that man to do. That human or that lady or that man. There will be work for them to do. But we have to rethink differently. Number two, of course, is the worker. The worker needs to be aligned and empowered to perform. I think now we have moved to the tradition of controlling people to empowering people. The best thing you can do is just to empower human potential. Create an environment where people can thrive, when they themselves can be expressed free. Because if you do that, you don't have to threaten them with those appraisals. I look for one day where there will be no such appraisals. That people have already been aligned, that their convictions become their safeguards. You know, for many of us are parents here. If there's one thing you treasure is if you know you have instilled the right convictions, which informs the value system of your child, because you know what? Even if you hear that your child has been spotted somewhere, in fact you'll say, even if he's there, I know he has a safeguard. You get me? You don't have to put a link to, so that whenever he's going, there's a bell ringing and all that. No. How can we do that with an employee aspect? It's an alignment issue. Have the right convictions established with them. That's why I talked about key faithfulness indicators. Because there are things that I will not do just because my consciousness, I have established convictions. But now we have even leadership with no convictions. That's why a doctor knows smoking is bad, but the same doctor will smoke. Does the doctor lack knowledge? Does he lack... Do we need to send the doctor to a certification in Harvard and Stanford then to do another certification? Is it knowledge they are lacking? That's why I said the greatest drift of our century is not lack of those things. Empowerment. People have knowledge. They are lacking one thing: convictions. Because you have the right conviction, let me tell you, nobody will tell you to do something. Convictions will push you to give your best. In fact, you will feel guilty even in your own life that I never gave my best in this role when I got it. So our work is as HR, how do we build convictions within our employees? But we are busy rushing. When people are being hired, it's just tick those employee onboarding form, subscribe to various benefits and all that. That's it. We are doing little when it comes to culture transformation. You know, there's one organization which we used to envy many years ago, especially for those who be 20 plus, 30 years ago. This used to be called General Electric. It's in the corporate world, definitely. And I think for those, when we were growing up and young, we were always reading case studies, all case studies done by London Business School before Harvard was popular. They were all around what? General Electric. And I remember in one forum where one of the senior executives was telling us that when you meet these guys somewhere in a club or a hotel, if you know the culture of General Electric, you'll actually spot them without them telling you where they work. And in fact, there's a guy who was testifying that I was in this forum and working forum, and I looked at the behavior and character of some people who are there, and I asked them, do you work for GE? And they said yes. How can I tell that you work in KRA? How can I tell that you work in whichever other organization? I think HR, we have a long way to go. There's work to do. Because you need to build a culture that actually, when I interact with you somewhere, I can almost smell you work somewhere, and there are values and belief systems that actually I can be able to detect from you. And the final, of course, to complete the W is the workplace. We need to make sure, of course, the workplace is enabling and adaptive for people to innovate. People will not, and I want to bring this perspective clearly. If you give people the space and alignment to be themselves, let me tell you, even innovation, you will not force it. But how many organizations really have what you call innovation pipeline? A pipeline or a funnel of ideas that are actually competing to be executed. We all have to maybe keep on trying to remind people, hey, continuous improvement. Let's improve. Let's have ideas to implement. But people are just laid back. They are not. Why? Because maybe the environment is not conducive enough and they don't feel safe to share their ideas. Or probably you align managers, especially the mid-management. They are mostly the killers of potential. So you find somebody who wants to challenge, can we do something differently? Then what do the managers do? They will tell you, tunafanyanga hivi, still. And it have worked. If it is not broken, why? That's a mediocrity issue. If it is not broken, why? Yes, we don't have to fix it, but we can improve it and transform it. So my question for you is simple here. Should we then probably be no longer called chief HR officers, HR directors? Could we craft this new title? Because what we are talking about today is around alignment. Could we then become chief aligners? For lack of a better word? I think that's a better title. Probably out of this conference, if there will be some resolutions, probably, is to appeal to the global HR. People and culture. All right. Yeah, that's better. I like it. I know it's been adopted. Yes. Awesome. Perfectly, yes. That's great. So, chief alignment officers, people and culture, I agree for it. And most of the progressive organizations, that's where they are. That's the work we are doing. And it's a very strategic. Whether you are aligning people to the strategy, purpose-led alignment, you are aligning people with their purpose, you are aligning people to the organization strategy so that there's no what you call dissonance. But of course, you're also aligning people to themselves in terms of humanized approach. All those are alignment issues, if you check well. And almost every executive, including the CEO, they are all being reduced into this alignment issue. It's really what they are doing. Because when you align, you also align resources, there will be efficiency, communication is going to flow, you'll avoid conflicts, frictions in terms of efficiency, and of course you expect that productivity and performance is going to accrue from there. I had asked a question whether there are people who have been following. I like always dealing with the contemporaries. People who have been following this Africa Forward Summit that was, I think it's just concluded, if I'm not wrong. And there were like 6 agendas that were being discussed there. Is there any agenda that gravitates with you as a HR? Or maybe that was just a president's business, head of state's headache? Is there any of the agenda that were being discussed? There are 6 agendas that were discussed in the Africa-France Partnership, Africa Forward Summit. Is there one that probably speaks to you? And I'm asking this question very strategically because sometimes we tend to disassociate ourselves. That conversation does not belong to HR. In fact, by the time it reaches HR, it has to go through several layers. It go to the PS, from the PS, it go to the directorates. By the time I'm HR, I'm receiving instruction. That's a long way of thinking. I remember yesterday, even after just that pronouncement, I was with some few other business founders, and the first thing we were saying, we need to position. We are trying to position. What do we do to position in whatever these guys are pronouncing? Not to wait to be given anything. It's you to take the advantage and provide leadership. And I'm provoking so that we raise an awareness that when you see even some of these things, whether it's the government doing something like the digitization, I know it's number one priority of the government, you should arise to the occasion yourself to drive it. If you do that, you're going to be relevant. Because you're the one leading people. You're the one leading change. Don't wait to be told to get into that task force. Nasemanga siku hizi Gen Z, jitume. Jitume. Appoint yourself, nominate yourself. Nobody will deny you that. Volunteer yourself to drive this. You can actually go there and be innovative tomorrow and go and put a task force within your team and tell them, let's discuss this agenda that we'll discuss in Africa Summit. What I want, you may not necessarily have something to do, but what I want to provoke you is, when you see even things at the global scale, don't think those things don't belong to you. Take ownership. Because there is no way government will digitize if at all the HR who are reading the people have not championed it. It will not be successful. People will still want, one time we were in a conversation where we digitized and they were issuing signing checks. But one guy just refused, a very senior executive, and said, no, me, I have to sign that. I want to trust the check. I want to see the check. And I sign it, and I feel I have signed it. Another bank was implementing, and are there people from Naivasha here? No prejudice. I remember one time, it's many years ago, and I don't know to label Naivasha people know I'm very sensitive with that. But I remember one time we implemented some ATMs in Naivasha. And many years ago, over 20 years, some ATMs. Then you'd expect when you deploy, let's say, an ATM, people are able to withdraw money and therefore they don't have to go and do what? Queue in the bank, isn't it? The reason for ATM is so that it's a self-service. So after implement, I remember it was Naivasha. After implementing the ATM, 6 months down the line, the branch manager was making business cases looking for more tellers to hire. Because people are flocking in the banking hall. Withdrawing what? Cash. Even 1K 500, they are withdrawing from the counter because they trust the teller. But the ATM is just out there. So even some security guards are the one who are telling customers, no. You want to withdraw? Yeah. Can I take you to the ATM? I'm talking about almost 20 plus years ago. So the branch manager is here now looking for more tellers because the clouds and and that's what we do in technology. What was missing there? We needed to coach the behavior of the customer. And I remember the security guards themselves. I'm sure you have gone to banks where you go and you queue and the security guard. And you are a graduate and you are a master's guy or you are a senior executive. You are queuing and the security tells you, hey, can I show you how you can do that on your mobile phone? Is the guard telling you to do that? What's the issue? It's adaptation. And who should drive that and take leadership? HR. Because if you don't reinforce the human behavior, like in the digitizations, people will get stuck. That's why even you, when you withdraw money in the ATM, you still count it. How do you withdraw 5K in bado unahesabu hivi? That's what you do. Because somehow you still don't trust pesa ya ukuta. Hii pesa, do I trust this? And you want to feel it. Ni kweli ni 5K, is it? That's a human behavior. And as HR, we have to never assume anything. So sometimes when we digitize, we assume, people will implement that ERP, people are going to log in those leave records, people are going to, no. Don't assume. Somebody told me one day, assumption is the lowest level of ignorance, so don't assume anything. So I was asking, when you see something happening, even in the global scale, or at the company level announced by the board or the CEO or whatever, never think that's something that belongs to somebody else. I wanted to try to discuss these agendas, the 6 agenda, from yesterday with a few of my friends and say, we want to see, because I'm also involved, especially on the digital side, how do we allow this AI penetration in Africa? You have to think. You don't have to wait for something or a tender to be issued. You can create those opportunities yourself. That's why I said all of us need to be thinking business, and business here is value and impact that we generate. So I'd like you to go and think about these agendas, because tomorrow, they may be pronounced yesterday. We don't know politically whether they are going to see the right or do. We don't know anyway. That's a political goodwill. But the thing is, if there are things here, I know that they are here to stay. Something like AI and digital technologies, it's here to stay with us, my friends. It's not going anywhere. So I don't know whether we have done AI readiness assessment, digital literacy, data literacy and fluency. Are we doing it? How are we preparing our employees? Because these are the people later tomorrow who will sabotage. We will say they are assisting. They are not necessarily assisting. They were not prepared. Who should prepare them? HR. But how do HR support them if at all HR does not take leadership? Drive that digital readiness, trying to check whether the AI readiness is there. People could still be skeptical. You all know that we were skeptical in so many ages before, even when we introduced computers in the marketplace. It's normal human behavior to stay in comfort. But we need to go ahead and try to chart pathways where they can be able to feel they can trust, create that safe workplace, and that's psychological safety that, of course, this is not taking over their job. It's actually enhancing them. So I think I want to jump a little bit because you're talking about digitalization and performance. We know the government environment has changed. We are moving, of course, from the manual paper-based approvals, annual performance reviews, silo departments. I said, I think also the killer of organizational performance is the departments. And of course, those are the things that we're moving from. We are now having real-time digital workflows we are creating from the traditional manual processes, cross-agency interoperability, where now, accessibility even to data need to be available across different functions, while still preserving the data protection issues. Outcome and citizen value is key. So we need to see ourselves as HR, whatever we are doing, how is it impacting the end game citizen? We're going to see one example that we can use for this. And then HR institutional capability. This is the reason we're saying you're statecraft. So whatever you're crafting, you're shaping the state of tomorrow. We are creating the future. So as you work, you're not just working transactionally with the confines of your JD. There is a whole legacy attached to what you do. But you need to elevate your consciousness to see it. But of course, the imperative for us is to make sure at least we are redesigning work. Have you ever seen cases where you automate, then you have what you call automated manual process? Have you ever seen automated manual process? Where now there's a difference between automation and digitization. Okay, follow me. Those are two different things. Automate and digitize are two different things, but they are somehow linked or kind of similar and can be confused. Okay? Digitize is to do something electronically. Follow me. That's digitize. Digitize does not mean that task is automated. So if you are applying leave on a physical form, you fill the form, start date, edit it on a physical form, then I now digitize that workflow. I've migrated that process. Now it's done inside, but I still have to enter the data. That is not automate. That is digitize. And you follow me? Because this is a mistake people are making in many organizations. That digitize. Digitization does not necessarily mean automated. Because automated means you have embedded an autonomous workflow on part of the process. For example, if I put start date and edit date manually, then it seems that I have to calculate the number of days taken manually. Now that part can be automated where you only put start date and number of days, it will auto-calculate the return date. There you have automated that last part. That's not digitized now. Okay? Apparently we have confused these when we are leading in many organizations. So sometimes you end up having manual processes. So you migrate the inefficiency in the same system now. It doesn't solve the issue. No wonder you will even have digitization and there is no efficiency improved. If you're struggling to access the report, you're still struggling. Yet you have a system. Now, who should be driving this mindset? And you don't have to be an expert. It's for you to ask tough questions. Even to those IT officers, the CIOs, Chief Technology Officers, ask them the right strategic questions. Are we digitizing? Are we automating? Show me the evidence of automation, not digitizing. Because you may end up having everything in the system, but again, it's automated manual process, for lack of a better word. digitization by itself, misconception again, as I said, is not just installing softwares, new systems, new ERPs, new HRIS systems. No, it's beyond that. That's the lowest you can do. Okay? It's not about scanning documents and have what you call document DMS, document management system, or content CMS, content management system. It's beyond that. That now you can have file retrieval electronically. It is not just moving from paper to PDF documents. You've seen organizations where they say they have an e-learning platform. I'm sure some of us may have found ourselves there. They tell you they have an e-learning platform, e-learning. Only when you go, they just find PDF notes. That's not an e-learning platform. That's a document management. It's like a Google folder. Just get and you read. That's not an e-learning. But in the paper, it is reported as, we have an e-learning system. It's different. You've just translated the archival of documents electronically, and it's good. It's a good foundation. But that's not necessarily an e-learning platform. So we are moving to redesign how services are delivered. And before you even have digitization, kindly try to review and redesign the processes. It's a high time actually HR now, we are being forced to go to the task analysis. I think that's what we call it, work motion study. Task analysis. Try to understand the specific granular tasks people do. Because productivity is attached to those little tasks they do. Output is attached to those little things they do. One thing that I will task us to do so that we provide clarity even for our employees. When you're doing job descriptions, I will recommend one thing. And it looks simple, but it is going to change so much. Actually, 2 improvements in the job descriptions. Okay? 2 improvements. And it's going to change the way people, in terms of role clarity. Well, the first improvement of the job description is one. Where you write roles and responsibility, I want you just to change slightly and put process name and task as a table. Then let people populate. Is when you will kind of confirm the initial statement I made in the multitude of sins, many words, sin is not absent. You will discover that. I'm giving you a very simple takeaway. Go where you put roles and responsibility in the JD. Change a little bit and now say, I want to put standard process name. In the corporate, you call it business process name. You just call it process name, because it's a process. And then the tasks is when you discover that JD will collapse. It will collapse and shrink. You may find actually somebody is just doing one process, few tasks, and that is it. But we are trying to look for things to fill in. Just a small adjustment. Then the second one is where you have those key result areas, KPIs, that part. And I would like you also to classify, just a small twist. Have 2 classification of indicators. Have strategic indicators and operational indicators. And you tell me what that is going to do, even with your own senior leaders. Just shifting that. I want to isolate between strategic measures and operational. So if I find you are, let's say, a directorate head, then 90% of your measurement are operational. What message is that? What message is that? You go and find, and I know I'm going to give a typical case here, which may be HR. Assume we came here for training, and you have chief HR officer with a KPI, number of employees trained. Is number of employees trained an activity, an output, an outcome? What is it? Yes. And if you want to know whether it's important, only 2 questions. Ask yourself why, then the answer for the why, so what? And then ask 3 times. Why? And the next question is, so what? Then repeat. The answer you get, you repeat. So you say, number of employees trained, 20. Why? Because I want them to increase their management skill. So what? Why? Just ask 3 times, you'll tell me. So if you are a senior executive or HOD, directorate, head of departments, then I can see your JD is full of operational KPI. When do you find time to be strategic? No wonder you'll find senior people spending time on operational issues. When do we expect them? Because when somebody tells you be strategic, do you know what they're telling you to do? When somebody tells you stop being operational, be strategic, few things that can give you a pointer for that. Because that sentiment, sometimes some leaders ask us that question, I want you to be strategic. I don't want you to be operational. But they have not told us, how do I become strategic? Few pointers. Number one is that whatever you're doing, position us in a differentiated way. Meaning you're not necessarily obsessed by now. You're obsessed actually by how differentiated is what I'm doing. It's more of a, again, future proof. That whatever I'm doing, I'm safeguarding the future. We have already achieved the now. We had a past. But to be strategic, you have to safeguard the future. That's one way to test whether that thing is strategic. Let me not spend much time there. So in order to enable what you call data-driven decisions, and at the end of the day, we have to win citizen trust because those are the people that we are serving at the end of the day. I said earlier I'm a bit skeptical to call performance management, and I may want to call it almost impact stewardship. So if I had a chance to do a whole concept note, I'll actually try to position and appeal to the global practice of strategists, monitoring and evaluation and performance management experts and professors to kind of drop the performance management and start talking about impact stewardship. Because we are stewards at the end of the day. We are taken care of. Have you ever heard the story of somewhere in Asia where the chief, there were snakes that were biting people every day. Children, when they are going to school, some snakes will beat them. I think there's a place in Kenya also there were snakes. Can't remember where. It must be somewhere, I think, Left Valley. So in this country, there were so many snakes that became wild. They are going to this, and they were actually biting children when they are going to school. So the chief came up with a good idea, and he said, how can we manage this? Let's give incentives to citizens. If you kill a snake and you bring the head, we'll give you 1,000. Okay? So the first week, like 1,000 snakes' heads were brought to the chief camp. Second week, 5,000 snake heads of snake were brought in the chief camp. By that month, almost over 20,000 heads of snake were brought to the chief camp. And every head of a snake you bring, you get 1,000. Then they started wondering, the population of the snakes that are being brought started growing. Now, mathematically, any population of human beings, animals, birds, including viruses, is countable. We call it finite. It's finite. It's not eternity. It's finite. How comes they keep on increasing day by day? Why? I'm sure you may have heard this somewhere. What was happening? Age. The chief kept on incentivizing snakes. If you bring a head of a snake, you get 1,000 shillings. So, by the third month, the number of heads was spiraled. Meaning now they were being from 1,000, they were increasing to 10,000, 100,000. Yeah? They started breeding the snakes. And you know that's what we do in the KPIs. That's why if I had a case, I can defend that position. These key performance indicators, it has a problem somewhere on the other side. Because what you measure, it models behavior. So if you start incentivizing number of heads of the snakes that I have killed and I bring them, that has already become another query of famine, isn't it? So I will breed them. I'll preserve the snakes I fight so that they multiply, and because reptiles will lay eggs in tens and hundreds. So within 2-3 months, you have even 10 times snakes to kill. So just be killing those that are of age. You take to the chief, you get your 1,000 each snake. It's a good business. But remember the intention was what? To eradicate snakes in the village. That is a mystery of human beings. So you can have a very brilliant idea, brilliant innovation. But if you don't deal with the human behavior, people will somehow work around it. That's why even fighting things like corruption has failed. Because even that which is like the police, you hire IPOA, now the behavior is also translated out to the IPOA, they do the same thing the police were doing. So who catch who? Nobody. Isn't? Because it's a human behavior issue. And until we start nurturing the right convictions, it will not end. It's this guy who is quoted many times, because I almost winding up so that we can have a Q&A session. And he's been arranged to say that in God we trust, or others must bring data. Sikuamini, I don't trust you. Now we need to elevate ourselves in those conversations. Data-driven approach. I don't trust it. Show me the evidence. That's what they say. Show me the evidence. I don't trust it. I've written a small book called 4DI Data Stewardship. So I don't trust you. Show me the evidence that this works. Don't just report for me the metric or that KPI. Show me the data. If you tell me you have resolved complaints, show me the data. Don't tell me my members, public is happy. No. Show me the data. I think if you can do this, even things like public participation. Sorry. We always know that now currently before you pass anything legislatively, you have to have public participation. But sometimes you fight public saying, me, I have no evidence that they came to my village. I never saw them. So I don't know what that participation means. There's no evidence. Maybe some few 10 people sat somewhere and that is it. So it's a big thing currently in the corporate world because we are moving more towards data-driven decision making. And therefore we have to shift the old appraisals of measuring attendance. I know your greatest headache right now is Gen Z. Sidio? That's your headache. Gen Z. And these are brilliant young people who, if we nurture them, maybe we could have another talk around that in a different session. But if you're measuring Gen Zs from attendance, you'll have a problem. You'll have a problem. Those clock in, clock out for these guys, you'll have a terrible problem. In fact, they will not sustain that work. And it's not because they have no potential, no. But the worldview is very different. Because hold me accountable to the results. That's the key. He can give you the results, was the issue. But now if you have not defined the results in terms of the impact, then you'll want to see me physically seated somewhere to prove that I'm working. And that's a culture issue again. Okay? So you're moving from, again, just thinking internally, that's from just with the context of the organization, to the citizen. Because whatever you are doing within an institute or whichever organizations you're representing, you are modeling the public image of that organization. That's why we have to focus on things like digital behavior. What is a digital behavior? Could your employees already fearing to use some digital tools because they feel that maybe if they are accustomed to it, they are going to be irrelevant. And therefore they will shy away, they will rather stick onto the old manual process. So, some of the things that make this process fail, number one is starting with the software. I think I mentioned about severally. Most of the time we start with the software, thinking that the software will solve the solution. Will solve the problem, sorry. Never start with the software as the solution. It is always good to, first of all, define the standards before using the system. Anastasia, I don't know how much time I have. Can we wrap it up? Thank you. Good. You're almost toward the tail end. Good. So, what am I saying? When you talk about digitization and this, I know it's a wave of digitization across many government functions. Don't start with the software first in mind. Look back to the architecture and the design of your work, the processes, the tasks. Eliminate the waste, whether they are rework, what you call lag, those process waste first before digitizing. And you can guide this even if you're not technically an expert, because you just need to ask the right question with the rest of the stakeholders. Weak leadership and also poor communication. Sometimes even employees don't understand what is happening within the organization. As again, lastly, the success metrics matters. What is the success? Because employees are more keen to know, why are we doing all this? Currently, you hear the debate of, KRI now want to start, analyzing our records, M-Pesa transactions, what else? Bank transactions, and people are a bit skeptical. But why are they skeptical? That trust is because maybe the why has not come out clearly. When the why come out clearly, people cooperate. But if the why does not come out clearly, people will resist. And the work of the HR is to model that preparedness, readiness. So I think I want to just add with a few slides around our HR strategy positioning. On one side, we are managing productivity, performance, and for those who are probably income generating, I know there's some parastatals that generate profit, then definitely the impact-led profit while balancing the people. The thing is we have to build a robust performance management system that connects from purpose, what on the right side of my diagram is connecting purpose all the way to the strategic outcomes. That's a whole bandwidth. We may need to talk maybe in a whole workshop for a day. But it's a responsibility for our HR here to be able to translate from purpose all the way to mission. And there's a difference between those two, to the values, to the vision, to the strategy, all downstream to the outcomes. And most of those outcomes are the impact that you're making in the community and in the society. I think I want to park there so that I can allow some one or two questions. But I hope at least one of my goals was to elevate your consciousness, to start thinking differently. Remember my key points. One is you have to be very clear with the purpose or the why for whatever we are doing. Because when the why is clear, the how will find its way. It's very easy. Number two, you have to be data-driven. We need to be the ambassadors and the champions to champion the adoption of things like AI, data literacy. And we also need to assess our organization in terms of the readiness, even before deployment, and not rush to implementing software that you have not prepared people for. So I think I'll end there. Thank you so much for giving me or lending me your ears. I can take one or two questions if there is any, as I hand over the meeting back